Okay, this is our first video on reading English and reading it fast to prepare for various exams and for general purposes too. You should be able to read fast because when you sit to read, you should. Novels take a long time to read. So let's start. And if you really want to understand what you're reading, then you have to have that kind of immersion and the practice of reading a particular language. Let's start. We're reading in this video. We're reading Dr. Johnson's Preface to Shakespeare. That praises are without reason lavished on the dead, and that the honor is due only to excellence are paid to antiquity, is a complaint likely to be always continued by those who, being able to add nothing to truth, for hope for eminence from the heresies of paradox, or those who, being forced by disappointment upon consolatory experience, are willing to hope from posterity what the present age refuses, and flatter themselves that the regard which is yet denied by envy will be at last bestowed by time. Okay, now what do you think about this particular paragraph is that all the words, first of all, are not important. Only those words you should focus on which give you information. For example, what is the subject of the paragraph? What is the subject of the paragraph? You should understand that. Subject, I mean to be the thing being talked about, the noun being talked about. Okay, so this particular paragraph, let us call it P1, is about some people, some kind of people who write for some purposes. That's the first pass, and we don't need to analyze it more than that at a first look. Okay, antiquity, like every other quality that attracts the notice of mankind, has undoubtedly votaries that reverence it not from reason but from prejudice. Some seem to admire indiscriminately whatever has been long preserved, without considering that time has sometimes cooperated with chance. All, perhaps, are more willing to honor past than present excellence, and the mind contemplates genius through the shades of age, as the eyes raise the sun through artificial opacity. The great contention of criticism is to find the faults of the moderns and the beauties of the ancients. While an author is yet living, we estimate his powers by his worst performance, and when he is dead, we rate them by his best. Okay, this paragraph continues the discussion, obviously, and it doesn't say more about this subject, but it talks about something else, and it talks about criticism. The subject in the second paragraph is criticism. What it says. Third paragraph. To works, however, of which the excellence is not absolute and definite, but gradual and comparative, to works not raised upon principles demonstrative and scientific, but appealing wholly to observation and experience, no other test can be applied than length of duration and continuance of esteems. The subject has again changed. What mankind have long possessed, they have often examined and compared, and if they persist to value the position, it is because frequent comparisons have confirmed opinion in its favor. As among the works of nature, no man can properly call a river deep or a mountain high without the knowledge of many mountains and many rivers. So in the productions of genius, nothing can be styled excellence till it has been compared with other works of the same kind. Demonstration immediately displays its power and has nothing to hope or fear from the flux of years. But works tentative and experimental must be estimated by their proportion to the general and collective ability of man, as it is discovered in a long succession of endeavors. The first building that was raised, it might be with certainty determined that it was round or square, but whether it was spacious or lofty must have been referred to time. The Pythagorean scale of numbers was at once discovered to be perfect, but the poems of Homer we yet know not to transcend the common limits of human intelligence, but by remarking that nation after nation and century after century has been able to do little more than transpose his incidents, new name his characters, and paraphrase his sentiments. Okay, now the subject is again changed, and this is a bigger paragraph than the other two. So this is this is an exposition, by the way. These three paragraphs we talked about are leading to some point where we'll see as the text continues. So the subject of the third paragraph, this present paragraph, introduces various other things. It says that it has, by the way, very many similes. It is comparing. It is the subject. Let us write just the subject right now. Comparison. It is talking about comparison. How to compare works of genius. That is the gist of this paragraph. Paragraph 3. We'll discuss it in more detail later. Paragraph 4. The reverence due to writings that have long subsisted arises therefore not from any credulous confidence in the superior wisdom of past ages or gloomy persuasion of the degeneracy of mankind, but is the consequence of acknowledged and indubitable positions that what has been longest known has been most considered, and what is most considered is best understood. That is, this can be a quotable quote if you want. That what has been longest known has been most considered, and what is most considered is best understood. You should mark it. Okay, now this particular paragraph 4 is a complement to paragraph 3 and summarizes it. And it is better if you read this paragraph than the paragraph 3rd, because it is shorter and more expressive than this. It is eloquent, but it is, for economy of words, better among the two. It is elaborative, this paragraph. Okay, now paragraph 5. This again is a lengthy paragraph, like the first two. Paragraph the 5th. The poet of whose works I have undertaken the revision. This who is this? This is Shakespeare. This is a noun phrase, by the way, if you don't know it. May now begin to assume the dignity of an ancient and claim the privilege of established fame and prescriptive veneration. He has long outlived this century, the term commonly affixed as the test of literary merit. Now, these are assertions. What are assertions? You should know that. Whatever advantages he might once derive from personal allusions, local customs, or temporary opinions have for many years been lost, and every topic of merriment or motive of sorrow which the modes of artificial life afforded him now only obscure scenes which they once illuminated. Okay, this is talking about topical elements. You should. This is what you have to have as note making. Mental note making. Better it is to write it down on a paper, especially if you're trying to attend an exam and trying to answer questions on the text given. The effects of favor and competition are at an end. The tradition of his friendships and his enmities has perished. His works support no opinion with arguments, nor supply any faction with invectives. They can neither indulge vanity nor gratify malignity, but are read without any other reason than the desire of pleasure, and are therefore praised only as pleasure is obtained. Yet, thus unassisted by interest or passion, they have passed through variations of taste and changes of manners, and as they devolved from one generation to another, have received new honors at every transmission. Now, the author basically in these lines, the last sentence, is saying that why they're read now. The time is gone. The people have perished. It has changed. Centuries have passed. See where Johnson is writing. Please look at that. 1765. His book, his edition of Shakespeare, and Shakespeare lived in another century. He lived from 1564 to 1616. If you don't know that already. Okay, and he's saying that the topical elements and the topical reasons for reading Shakespeare have perished. So why do they read it now? Aesthetic pleasure. Aesthetic pleasure should come to your mind. Aesthetic pleasure. Okay. So here is turned, and now this particular paragraph 5, is turned directly to the man, Shakespeare. To Shakespeare, S for Shakespeare. Okay, next paragraph, paragraph 6. But because human judgment, though it be gradually gaining upon certainty, never becomes infallible, and approbation, though long continued, may yet be only the approbation of prejudice or fashion. It is proper to inquire by what peculiarities of excellence Shakespeare has gained and kept the favour of his countrymen. This is the first time he's mentioning the author, the subject of his text, Shakespeare by name. So, do you call it a well-developed exposition? It is a very well-developed exposition. I was talking about this thing rising. Now, paragraph 6 comes Shakespeare's name, and paragraph 6 presents to us this argument that it is proper to inquire by what peculiarities of excellence Shakespeare has gained and kept the favour of his countrymen. You should mark it. This is important. This is the second video on Preface to Shakespeare by Dr. Johnson. We are reading fast and making notes. We're seeing how to do it. You're welcome. We're at the paragraph 6. We're beginning paragraph 7 in this video. Okay, let's start. Nothing can please many and please long, but just representations of general nature. Now this again is in aphoristic style, and you can quote it somewhere, so you should note it down. Particular manners can be known to few, and therefore few only can judge how nearly they are copied. The irregular combinations of fanciful invention may delight a while, by that novelty of which the common satiety of life sends us all in quest. But the pleasures of sudden wonder are soon exhausted, and the mind can only repose on the stability of truth. Now, what is this paragraph doing? This is talking about the subject matter of interest, of significance or permanence. This is paragraph 7. You should be able to make a very short summary of the idea that is being talked about in the paragraph. Next, the first line, nothing can, etc. Very well summarizes it. Next paragraph. Shakespeare is above all writers, at least above all modern writers, the poet of nature, the poet that holds up to his readers a faithful mirror of manners and of life. This is again a quotable quote, and you should use it wherever you can. You should note it down. His characters are not modified by the customs of particular places, unpracticed by the rest of the world, but by the peculiarities of studies of professions which can operate but on small numbers, or by the accidents of transient fashions or temporary opinions. They are the genuine progeny of common humanity, such as the world will always supply and observation will always find. His persons act and speak by the influence of those general passions and principles by which all minds are agitated and the whole system of life is continued in motion. The writings of other poets, a character is too often an individual. In those of Shakespeare, it is commonly a species. Okay, so universality is the word that should come up in your mind. Universality in Shakespeare's characters. Shakespeare's characters aren't represented by small groups or blocks or chunks of people. That tailors, only tailors who talk like that, or particular, for example, tanner, for example. Let it be a profession. It is a profession, tanner. So only tanners who talk like that. That's the point it's trying to illustrate. It applies to species instead of particular blocks of men, types of men. If you know commedia dell'arte, you would know what it is. You'd better appreciate these lines. Okay, the gist of this is universality in Shakespeare's characters. Universality in Shakespeare's characters is the gist of paragraph 8. This is the first pass. We can delve deeper into each paragraph and we can provide our own commentary on it. We can think on it, how good or bad those lines are, how much we, to what extent we agree to it or not. But that is different matter. What we have to concentrate on this is what the paragraph is about. This is the first question. This is the easiest question that you can answer about a paragraph, and that is most generally an inquiry that is asked at the first level in any exam. Okay, let's move on to paragraph 9. It is from this wide extension of design that so much instruction is derived. It is this which fills the place of Shakespeare with practical axioms and domestic wisdom. Okay, this again comments on this line, particular line, first line, comments on what paragraph 8 said. This, the reference, the pronoun. Okay, it was said of Euripides. Now Euripides starts. See how the author is making his argument. This is important for analyzing any text, whether it's scientific or otherwise. It was said of Euripides that every verse was a precept, and it may be said of Shakespeare that from his works may be collected a system of civil and economical prudence. Okay, this is talking about the axiomatic and collectible nature of Shakespeare's words. Okay. Next, yet his real power is not shown in the splendor of particular passages, but by the progress of his fable and the tenor of his dialogue. And he that tries to recommend him by select quotations will succeed like the pedant in Heracles, who, when he offered his house to sale, carried a brick in his pocket as a specimen. Okay, that is a very, you see the impact of this anecdotal kind of persuasion. He's presenting anecdotes from literary allusions to Euripides, then it is the next is Heracles. Okay, what he's trying to say in the last line is that you are trying to get the viewer a taste of the house by showing a brick, and you can't do that with Shakespeare. He makes a qualification to that, yet, by the word yet. I'll read it again for you. Yet his real power is not shown in the splendor of particular passages, but by the progress of his fable and the tenor of his dialogue. And then he introduces the metaphor. Osim, the other figure, he's trying to present to persuade. This is persuasion, and you see the author. You can see the author is a master at that persuasion. Persuasive writing, you call it. Okay. Next paragraph, paragraph 10. It will not easily be imagined how much Shakespeare excels in accommodating his sentiments to real life, but by comparing him with other authors. Okay, I'm not right what the paragraph said about, the last paragraph said about his so what is the paragraph about? The paragraph 9 we were discussing. Paragraph is about his ability, of course, but that is secondary to this. How to judge Shakespeare? Simply that. The question he discusses how to judge Shakespeare. Shakespeare by his epigrams, his axioms, or by his dialogue and his fable, the telling of his tale and all that. Okay. Next paragraph. Paragraph 10. It will not easily be imagined how much Shakespeare excels in accommodating his sentiments to real life, but by comparing him with other authors. This is a new idea introduced. Okay. It was observed of the ancient schools of declamation that the more diligently they were frequented, the more was the student disqualified for the world, because he found nothing there which he should ever meet in any other place. The same remark may be applied to every stage but that of Shakespeare. The theatre, when it is under any other direction, is peopled by such characters as one has seen, conversing in a language which was never heard, upon topics which will never arise in the commerce of mankind. But the dialogue of this author is so often so evidently determined by the incident which produces it, and is pursued with so much ease and simplicity that it seems scarcely to claim the merit of fiction, but to have been gleaned by diligent selection out of common conversation and common occurrences. Okay, now this is simply, in this paragraph, Johnson the author compares Shakespeare with other theatre. This is the idea of this paragraph, and we'll just simply move on because it's a lot. There are many paragraphs. It's a long document. Okay, and he's talking about other, and again he's introduced another anecdote, or call it literary allusion, what you will. Okay, but that is a different level of detail and a different level of analysis. We are just looking at summaries of paragraphs and how to think about paragraphs, how to make a summary, at least first. Because that is the first step. Okay. Next, paragraph 11. Upon every other stage, the universal agent is love, by whose power all good and evil is distributed, and every action quickened or retarded. Now this paragraph is talking about other stages. That is the first line. That is what the idea you get from the first line. Now let us see what else it has to say. To bring a lover, a lady, and a rival into the fable, to entangle them in contradictory obligations, perplex them with positions of interest, and harass them with violence of desires inconsistent with each other, to make them meet in rapture and part in agony, to fill them out with hyperbolical joy and outrageous sorrow, to distress them as nothing human ever was distressed, to deliver them as nothing human ever was delivered, is the business of a modern dramatist. For this probability is violated, life is misrepresented, and language is depraved. But love is only one of many passions, and as it has no great influence upon the sum of life, it has little operation in the drama as a poet who cut his ideas from the living world and exhibited only what he saw before him. He knew that any other passion, as it was regular or exorbitant, was a cause of happiness or calamity. Okay, so other dramas, he says, are about love, and they show the vagaries of lovers and the course of love, and vagaries is ups and downs. And the villain, of course, it's a common trope, let us call it. Okay, this is note making. I'm not being accurate or precise, but this is correct. Okay, next. So, what is this paragraph about? Paragraph 11 talks about what would you write for one line. If I told you what in one line, in one main clause, you have to state the purpose of the paragraph. I see it now is simply other theatre's subject matter. And so we move on to the next paragraph. Characters thus ample and general were not easily discriminated and preserved. Yet perhaps no poet ever kept his personages more distinct from each other. I'll not say with hope that every speech may be assigned to the proper speaker, because many speeches there are which have nothing characteristical, but perhaps, though some may be equally adapted to every person, it will be difficult to find any that can be properly transferred from the present possessor to another claimant. The choice is right when there is reason for the choice. Now, this is another idea, and it is talking about characters and characterization. Now, this particular paragraph has some complexity in it, in that there's a complexity in the paragraph. The complexity is that he is introducing Pope, what he said, and if he agrees with him or not, and he doesn't. It seems that he doesn't. And with what is comments on the characterization, and that the character should suit his position and all that. That is, you'll understand that only if you know already what Aristotle said about all of these things, or what the neoclassic theory is. By the way, we're not going into that right now, but this is what it means. This is what it is about. Next.